Hello and welcome to another installment of our technology webinars. Today we're going to talk about digital publishing and portfolios. I am Mark Oakton, a coordinator with the Curriculum and Professional Development Division. You see there my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me and contact me with any questions that you might have or any support that I can provide in relation to your integration of technology into instruction. I'm really excited about today's webinar because this is something that I feel really strongly about using the technology to publish and create portfolios for our students. As always, today's presentation is part of the Clark County School District's Blend Ed Digital Learning Initiative. As I've said before, in all of our webinars, and I always give this little introduction, I know that those of you who've watched a lot of the webinars, you've seen this time and time again, you say, Mark, I don't want to hear this part again, but I think it's really important that you understand what the purpose is and what's our motivating factor in putting all these webinars together. The different branches of the Curriculum and Professional Development Division that are working on this are the Online and Blended Learning Department, the PDE Department, that's Professional Development Education, the Technology Integration, and the Nevada Ready 21 programs. And we're all working together to try to help teachers across the district use more technology in their instruction and to get more online and blended learning into our classrooms. When we're talking about the district's Blend Ed initiative, what we're looking at is combining the best elements of the face-to-face instruction, because we don't want to get rid of that. We have a lot of really phenomenal things that teachers are doing, and we don't want teachers to stop doing those face-to-face. This is not about going completely online. It's about blending the best elements of face-to-face instruction with the best elements of digital online learning. And so we're not talking about blended education. In the CCSD, we're talking about Blend Ed. And again, we're talking with Blend Ed, there's three elements that are really important for us to be aware of: the digital curriculum, the guided instruction, and the authentic assessment. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the authentic assessment today, because that's where our digital publishing and portfolios really becomes a powerful element. It is about having that authentic assessment. But all of these, we need to be aware of all of these as we are trying to use more online and digital learning and bring those into our classroom. But if you think about it, we're always involved with curriculum, instruction, and assessment with all components of our classroom. So we can't ever, this isn't anything new, it's just a different way of looking at it possibly. Getting credit. A couple of things that you have to make sure you do to get credit. In Pathward for attending this webinar, you do have to view the entire webinar. As always, I make it in Edpuzzle so that you can't fast forward through the webinar to make sure that you can get credit. I will have some questions that pop up throughout the presentation. The first one will be in just a moment, and as always, I'm asking you to simply tell me what school you're at or what location you're at and your name. That's the first question always, just to make sure that you don't turn it on and walk away. I do have these questions embedded throughout. Because these do count for CUs, we have some accountability that we have to make sure that you're actually viewing the webinar. As well, we do ask that you complete the exit survey at the end of the webinar. That's important for us to have some feedback to let me know specifically if there's some things that I could do to better support you. And I hope that you find value in these webinars and in this webinar today specifically, as I share some information that's really important to me. Okay, so the first question that we want to ask is, why publish? What is the significance of publishing? Why is it important pedagogically? Why is it important for our students? And then we're going to look a little bit more specifically at some of the tools that we have for publishing, both in the Apple and the iPad environment and in the Google or the Chrome environment. We do have a number of schools in which the students have either iPads on a one-to-one basis, or where there is a class set of cards, or sometimes even where teachers have access to just one or more iPads in the classroom for students to use. We have other classrooms which have a lot of Chromebooks, whether it's one-to-one or carts of Chromebooks, or a couple of computers in the classroom that students can go on and use on a rotation basis. And all schools have labs where the teachers can check out and go into at least periodically, some schools more than others, and where you can get your students online. So whether you have access to iPads or Chromebooks or laptops or a computer lab, or even if you're a school that's a BYOD, a bring your own device school, there should be something in here that everyone can use. Maybe you can't use everything that I present. Maybe you don't have access to iPads, and so that whole iPad section doesn't necessarily apply to you. I hope that you can get something out of it, and at least pull one or two things out of today's webinar that you can apply to your classroom and to do with your students on either on a regular basis or at least fairly quickly here. Now, I love to talk about why we should integrate technology into instruction, as we really do seem to be the only field or industry in which people question its necessity, and that really just baffles me. After all, the average number of instructional computers in public schools more than doubled between 1995 and 2008. In 2007, we're going on 11 years here now, at the time that I'm producing this. In 2007, Apple's iPhone arrived on the digital scene, and I think that we all know and understand where we've gone since then. We are going through what some scholars are calling a knowledge revolution, which is really on the same scale as the Industrial Revolution, and that's going to completely transform our lives and the structure of our schools. So as I go through the next couple of items, if you've seen a lot of my webinars, bear with me, as some will look a little bit familiar, but I think that these are so important that I do want them to be recurring themes as we try to get more and more teachers on board to increase and to improve their integration of technology into instruction. So to me, creativity is the forgotten attribute. So often we see creativity being stifled in our classrooms. We want students to take the standardized test, to answer those A, B, C, D multiple choice questions, to sit in their straight rows in every classroom and listen to us teach, listen to us impart our knowledge to them. But we provide very little room or outlet for being creative. Creativity is one of the 4 C's of 21st century learning. This is what our students and future employers are asking them for them to have. And so I think we're doing a real disservice when we are stifling that creativity. I think that especially in those early grades, we can really help our students to be creative and to access that native creativity. I mean, every 4, 5, and 6-year-old is creative, and they can see, they can see, spaceships and superheroes in the clouds. It's that natural tendency which we want to nourish rather than stifle. With digital publishing, we're giving students the chance to find their own voice, to be creative in that. So that effective use of technology will promote and even require some creative self-expression. I'm rather narcissistic, and I often quote myself. I thought that this was brilliant, and other people don't necessarily have to share that idea. But I like to at least be a little bit egotistical every now and then. But I like to say that we know that learning cannot happen when an audience is disengaged, disinterested, or distracted. With that said, we have to remember that engagement is not the goal, but a byproduct of making an instructional shift. When students are engaged in high quality, rigorous, standards-based instruction, learning is inevitable. And it's that high quality, rigorous, standards-based instruction which can and should often use technology, and in this case specifically digital publishing, that can have a powerful influence on our instruction and on the learning that takes place in our classroom. One of the neat things, and this is one of my big soapbox pieces, one of the neat things about digital publishing is that it takes students from being mere consumers of information and consumers of media and content to become active producers and active curators of that content themselves, which is a real powerful shift. We want them to be the creators and the producers and the curators, not just people who can turn on a video or log into social media and read and view, but to be able to be discerning and able to analyze and evaluate and make judgment about what they are viewing and reading, and also to then do that themselves. In addition, the technology becomes a tool for conveying demonstrating and applying those skills and knowledge that they are supposed to be gaining in your classrooms, not just the medium for receiving the information from you. There's a huge difference between students being actively engaged in using technology as a production tool than passively receiving the information. Not that there aren't times when they are going to have to be recipients of information. Obviously, that's where a lot of learning does take place. But let them demonstrate that learning as well, and do so in a powerful way. To me, keeping in mind that engagement is really not the goal, but a byproduct of effective instruction, the connection between student engagement and effective instruction is obvious. Students that actively participate in high-level standards-based instruction that places a high cognitive demand on them will learn. It's just going to happen. I told you at the beginning that I was going to talk a little bit more about authenticity and authentic assessment. Authenticity is extremely important to me. And I reference this quite often because it was something that really changed my way of thinking. I love to watch TED Talks and to gain information and to listen to new ideas, whether I agree with them or not, from some of the TED presentations. But my absolute all-time favorite TED Talk was by Alan November. In this TED Talk, Alan November talks about a presentation that he was giving at a school. And during this presentation, he was discussing and talking about a student that he had never met who is publishing online. It just so happened that while he was at that particular school talking about that student, the girl was in the audience, which he didn't know. So there was a little bit of a ruckus in the audience as everyone realized that this girl that he was talking about was actually there listening to him talking about her. So he brought her up on the stage and did a cameo with her and highlighted some of what she was doing. But what surprised him is that later in the day, as he was at this school, Alan was pulled aside by one of the girl's teachers who commented that she was not a very good student and does not do her work. And this really surprised Alan November because he had seen what she was writing and knew her skill and her ability and was just overwhelmingly impressed by what he had seen. So he looked around the school and managed to find this girl and talk to her for a moment about why she wasn't doing well in school and why she wasn't doing her work. And when he asked her, her response was along the lines of, "When I wake up every morning, I have to decide, am I going to produce writing for my teacher or for the world?" Technology tools in general, and digital publishing in particular, allows us to link learning to the world beyond the classroom and provide that essential context for learning. It is what makes the learning authentic and meaningful and valuable and really real for the students. We all know that real audiences are important. If students know that something is going to be read or viewed or consumed by an audience that is greater than their teachers, and I hate to break it to you teachers, we are not authentic audiences. Students don't view us as real people. When I remember sometimes running into a student at the grocery store, and the students are shocked. It's like, I do live, I have to eat. They thought that I just stayed, I know that they didn't think this, but they were surprised that I had a life outside of the four walls of my classroom. We are not an authentic audience. So when the students know that something is going to be read, that's going to be viewed by someone other than their teacher, they tend to invest more work into it. In essence, we really need to do away with what's synthetic, what's isolated, and what's just for us, by providing authentic audiences and authentic tasks for our students. So we always need to consider who will see the work. Is it going to be seen by just me, the teacher, by the students' peers, a little bit more authenticity, by the entire school, that authenticity level just keeps going up? Is it going to be seen by their local community or the entire world? Think about the impact that increasing that authenticity can have for the students. Publishing and portfolios are a powerful assessment tool. Technology facilitates and makes both formative and summative assessments easier and more usable in making instructional decisions. And I think digital publishing and portfolios can be used for both formative and summative assessments. Think about how powerful it is to show student growth as you have this portfolio of writing throughout the year, or whatever. It doesn't have to be writing. When I talk about publishing and portfolios, we are not necessarily talking about writing, even though I'm an English teacher and I feel strongly about writing. It can be used in any content area, and we can use it to show growth. And of course, we always have to talk about the standards. We cannot forget about our standards, our Common Core state standards, the NVACS, Nevada Academic Content Standards. Standards are king. I say that all the time. Technology both enables us to reach and is even embedded in our content area standards. If you don't know it, go back and look at your standards. The NVACs require teachers to use technology in the classroom for digital publishing. NVAC Writing Standards 6. From kindergarten through 12th grade, there's just a little bit of variation. Here's the kindergarten standard. It says, with guidance and support from adults, explore a variety of digital tools to produce and publish writing, including in collaboration with peers. Publishing and portfolios digitally, right there. Let's look at the 11th and 12th grade standard 6. Use technology, including the internet, to produce, publish, and update individual or shared writing products in response to ongoing feedback, including new arguments or information. So the cognitive load's a little bit higher. There's a little bit more for students to do, but it's really not that much different. Kindergarten through 12th grade, the standard is pretty much the same. We have to be helping our students to digitally publish their work, publish their learning, and create portfolios of that learning. Now, sometimes I get asked, why technology? If I can have students doing all of this with paper and pencil, Gutenberg started the printing press in what year? I used to know that, and I forgot it. Okay. If students can do all this with old technology, why do we need to use the new technology? The world, if you haven't noticed, the world is changing around us. Growing up, we had a newspaper delivered to my home every day, and it was a tradition that, it was kind of just a thing that I did. I would go out and get the newspaper in the morning, sit down for breakfast, and read the sports page and the comics, and sometimes I'd actually get to the real news. Okay? I don't see newspapers anymore. I've not had a newspaper delivered to my house in 20 years. Newspapers are going the way of the horse and buggy, and I think that they'll soon be completely non-existent. Are we really trying to prepare students for the world that they will inherit? Or are we trying to prepare them for a world that is fading away? The factory school model was very, very efficient for preparing students for factory life. How many people do you know that work in factories even now? Is that what we're trying to prepare students for? Something that no longer exists? So I ask the all too obvious question, what are you preparing your students for? So there's my soapbox speech, and I like to give it every now and then. You're familiar with it. I think you all know where I stand, but I want to hopefully light a fire under you and help you to light a fire under your students to use some of this technology to improve and change the way you teach, and do it with your peers. Maybe I'm preaching to the choir because you're here listening, where the people in the classrooms next to you aren't. This can change the way we teach. This can change the way students learn and helps prepare students for the world that they're going to live in. Okay, I'm going to get off my soapbox now and talk about something that's a little bit more practical for you. And that is how to publish digitally and how to create portfolios using the technology. There are so many tools out there that it was really difficult to try to narrow down the tools that we would use. There's so much out there that there's no way that we could possibly address them all and have it be of any value to you. We could do something that's, even my 40 apps in 40 minutes webinar turned out to be about, 60 apps in 120 minutes or whatever it might have been. Okay? So there's no way that we can go through in depth all of the tools. So we had to just select a few tools that we think would be valuable to you. Remember, publishing does not have to mean writing. Students are able to publish in a variety of ways. They can use text, images, videos, music, sound. So let's look at just a few ways that we can publish in an iPad environment and then publish in an internet environment, a Chrome environment. So why would we want students to publish digitally from an iPad? There are a few reasons for this. First and foremost is the flexibility and the portability of iPads. You can take them anywhere, and your students are not limited to just staying at their desks or in the classroom. They can take it out in the hallway, out to the playground, or anywhere else on campus to work on the assignment that you're going to publish in order to take pictures, record videos, gather research or materials. iPads do allow you to publish in a variety of formats. When we say digital publishing, we tend to think of just the written word, but digital publishing doesn't have to be an essay or narrative response, or doesn't even need to be written at all. As I said a minute ago, it can be video, audio, or any other format that I haven't mentioned. I'm sure your kids will do stuff that I've not even thought of. As well, one of the great things about iPads is that they are easy to use at any grade level and with any subject. iPads can also make it easy to share and to collaborate, which is an important part of the Nevada Academic Content Standards when it comes to publishing. Students need to be able to collaborate. They need to be able to share their work, and iPads make that very easy to do. So there are a few different types of apps that we can use on the iPads. First, we have the movie making apps, which include things like iMovie, Green Screen, and VideoScribe. VideoScribe is one of those apps that allows you to draw on the screen, but it is a subscription-based app. Second, we have stop-motion apps like iStopMotion and Lego Movie Maker. Third, we have apps that use puppets or cartoons to help tell stories like Puppet Pals or Toontastic. Fourth, we have apps that create text and image-based presentations in which student voices can be recorded. And finally, we have our EPUB creators. EPUB is the industry standard for interactive books. These include apps like Book Creator, Creative Book Builder, and even Pages will export into an EPUB format and can be shared on a variety of devices. And so today I'm just going to share a couple of my favorite apps that can be powerful for students to use to create videos and publish digitally, because that's one of the strengths of the iPad is the ease of video creation. So I've done, you've seen some of these apps before in different scenarios, or maybe you're new to our webinars and haven't. Hopefully I'm going to share something with you that you can find valuable here with the apps. One of the things that I want to show you is how to use the Explain Everything app on the iPad to have students demonstrate their thinking, to narrate their learning, to explain what it is they know and the processes that they're taking as they're engaged in an activity, especially as they're trying to demonstrate their expertise, their mastery of the skills that you're teaching. And so it's a really great app for doing this on the iPad and for publishing that learning and that knowledge. Now, the Explain Everything app is very similar to Doceri, which you've probably seen me demonstrate before. But one of the things that Explain Everything does, which Doceri does not, it has the ability to embed video and to add video as the students or you are explaining what it is you are learning. And so we're going to go and open up the Explain Everything app here. And it really, really is super easy to use. Okay, so I don't have any projects on this iPad. So it is something that's collaborative. You can join and have students work collaboratively on different iPads with the same project. I've never actually tried that, but it's something that looks very, very promising. One of these days I'm going to have to try it just for fun. But for right now, I'm just going to create a new project. I'm going to do this individually, as you'd probably want to have your students do. Because I have my iPad in the landscape position right now, I'm going to keep it on landscape mode. And I don't want a blank project right now. I'm going to, let's say I'm in a math class, and I am doing something with graphing. And so there's actually a custom template here, which looks like the graph paper. So I'll select that graph paper template, and it's going to open up. And so we see my graph chart here, my chart paper here, my graph paper here, whatever it is you want to call it. As you all know, I taught high school English, and I'm fairly mathematically challenged. So this will be fun. I've had to practice this a couple times, because my math is not that great. I'm not going to name it practice. I'll name it graphing equations. Thank goodness for calculators. And I'll do a quick save now. Okay. So the first thing I want to do now, because this is one of the reasons I like Explain Everything, whereas I usually use Doceri for a lot of my whiteboard screencasting. In Doceri, if I click on the plus sign on the left-hand side, I have the option to add a new video. Up at the top we see Insert New. I can take a picture right now while I'm doing this, or I can add a video. As well, I can add existing files of various sorts that I might want to use. So I'm going to add a new video. I click on that, and it brings up my smiling face. I can drag that and put that wherever I like, and you can look at me as I am going through this exercise. So I'll give you a little wave and a shout out and say, hope you enjoy this. I don't typically like to record my face while I'm presenting. It's nice to do things blindly. Okay, so now I'm going to use and you can see my finger going over the camera there because of how I have everything positioned. Yeah, I'll keep that on the left hand side. I'm going to select my pen tool, and I'll just use the black pen, and I'm going to write my equation. And so let's see, y equals 2x minus 2. That's one that I think that even I can solve. And because I want to solve this, oh, I forgot to do a key step here, and your students will forget to do this, and so they'll have to start over. So I'm going to hit the undo button a couple times just to clear it all out. And now I'm going to, move that back up there. Now, because I want to record and publish my learning, I have to actually hit the record button. So in the middle of the screen at the bottom, I hit the record button. Now notice that it starts the recording both in the video in the upper left, and you see the timer going at the same time at the bottom. Now, if I needed to, I could mute myself. Maybe I had to cough or something. I would want to mute myself while I do that. But I'll unmute myself, and I'm going to do this. All right, let me put my equation back up there. Oops, how did I get that? I grabbed the marker, not the pen. That is a really ugly y. Y equals 2x minus 2. Create my xy table. Minus 2, minus 1, 0, 1, and 2. Now I'm going to explain my thinking. I want to choose things on both sides of that 0 point. I don't remember what you call it, the vertice, is that right? I don't know, math teachers. I apologize that it's been way too long since I've done this type of math in high school and college. Now I'm going to demonstrate my thinking. So 2 times negative 2, because negative 2 is x, so start there. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4, minus 2 will give me negative 6. Negative 1 times 2 is negative 2, minus 2 will give me negative 4. And I'm going to keep explaining my thinking as I go through and solve this problem. So now I have my points. I have 5 good points there that I can use to graph this equation. And I'm going to switch tools here. I want to use the line tool. And so if I go to the geometric shape on the left-hand side, I have some options. I can grab a square with the rounded edges, a circle, a star, an arrow, which actually makes a really broad arrow, so we don't want to use this for this math problem, and then the simple line tool. So I'm going to use that line tool and just draw my chart, my graph. I'm going to get as close to that line as I can. Now it automatically goes back to my hand tool, so if I want to draw the other line for the other axis, I have to go back and reselect that line tool and draw my other line. Perfect. I'll grab my pen and just make a couple of hash marks to make it easier for me as I solve the problem. So I'm just setting up what I'm doing and talking my way through it for your purposes. You would probably want your students to do the same thing, because the point of this is for them to explain what they know and what they can do, and to demonstrate that skill mastery. Now I'm going to just change it to colors, and I'll just grab the blue and graph my points here. Negative 2, negative 6, negative 1, negative 4, 0, negative 2, 1, 0. Oops, it's not a very good mark there. Let me try that again. 1, 0, and 2, 2. Alright, so I've got my 5 points that I want to graph. Once again, I'm going to grab my line tool and the geometric shapes and explain. Oh, that is not right on at all. Let me try that again, and I'll change the color even just for fun. Let's see if I can do a little bit better job, slightly better. And I can explain why that line is where it is and what the significance of that is, and explain everything I know about that. So it's a real quick and easy way to explain everything in a math class, and that's a great tool. And so the students can do that as they go throughout the year, and you can see why they're doing what they're doing and making the choices that they're making with the content. So again, graphing with explain everything. Now, and you see my paused face there, that's really going to wig me out as we watch it, as I go through the rest of this. Once you have recorded your presentation, or your students have recorded their presentation, they want to go back in and do another quick save to save it, and then they want to share it. And they'll click the share button there and export the video. And they want to export it actually as a video. And so we'll bring this up. They could airdrop it. I can airdrop it from my iPad onto my another iPad of mine here that I have sitting out here, or to any other device, which is really easy. What I'd probably do is I would add it to, I would simply save the video, and then I could go into my Google Classroom and upload that video. So I'm going to click on Save Video, and you see it's going to go ahead and prepare that project. So a super easy way to demonstrate, for students to demonstrate their learning. So that is the Explain Everything app, which is a great app to use. The Doceri app will do everything that Explain Everything does, except for the video. Now, if you're looking for a free app, then the Doceri app is the way to go. Explain Everything does have a cost. And so if you're putting it on just one or two iPads, or if you have a number of iPads and you can purchase it through your school's volume purchasing program, then it would be worth it. But at full cost at $14.99 per app, it is not something I would put on every device, but it's a lot of fun. It's a great app to use, and one that I think is really powerful. Again, you can do everything except have the video in it if you're using Doceri, so that might be the way to go as well if you don't want to spend the money. In other content areas, let's say you're in a social studies class, maybe you're talking about geography, and so what you can do is you could bring in a map of Africa and maybe explain where Egypt is. You can add pictures and have students explain their understanding of what they've learned in that content area. Same thing in a science class. You can add pictures, you can have your students explain a process, they can use diagrams and charts. So it is a universal app that can be used in any content area for students to explain their learning and to explain what they know. And so, super cool. I hope you have fun with it. Whether it's Explain Everything or Doceri, it'll be great for your kids. Okay, quite often we want our students to explain what they have learned or to narrate. Some students are really good about doing that in class and are really good about answering questions on the spot. Other students, however, need a chance to put together what they want to say in a little bit different format. They need time to edit and revise and to put their verbal expression together in another way. And as well, we've talked about the 21st century C's, the 4 C's of 21st century learning. One of those C's, the C of creativity, is so often not present in our classrooms. And I was thinking about my experience way back when as a student, and I shouldn't say way back when. One of the experiences that really stands out vividly in my memory as a student was actually when I was in my sophomore English class at Chaparral High School back in the early 90s. Paula Nagel, the principal over at Del Webb Middle School, was actually my English teacher in this class. And she was one of my inspirations. She's one of the reasons I went into education. And so I owe a lot to her. But I remember we were reading some short stories by Mark Twain. I even remember the story. This is how long, after more than 20 years. We were reading The Jumping Frog of Calaveras County by Mark Twain. And we were tasked with rewriting and re-expressing the main ideas of the story in a different way. And so a buddy of mine, we decided that we were going to write a song. Now, as you listen to me and say, Mark, you are monotone, you are tone deaf, that's just a bad idea, and it probably was. But we thought we'd put a song together to express this, to retell the story in a different manner. In essence, we were trying to remix from Mark Twain, and we got up there and my friend had his voice was a little bit better than mine. Well, that's an understatement. Significantly better. So there's this nice contrast because it's always funny to laugh at the fool, and I was the clown in that case because we played it up my lack of my lack of musical ability. So we got in front of the class and we sang, we performed this song. Again, over 20 years later, 25 years later now, I think about that, and I remember that experience and what I learned from it. And I still remember that story and what happened in that all this time after all these years, just because of that experience. We can do that same thing with our students, but we have some tools now which will really aid them, especially for some of our students who are gifted in this area. We talked about the multiple intelligences. We have those people who are very, very much musically talented, and we can have them, and sometimes it's really hard to get them to engage in and produce in something that it doesn't appeal to them. This is where, and this is an app that is universal on iPads, but very rarely used in any classroom. And I think we can leverage that to have students express and convey what they've learned and publish. And so this app is the GarageBand app, which you've seen on your iPad. You probably never used it, but it's not that complicated to use, and it's something that students can use to convey their learning. So when you open up GarageBand, I'll give mine a minute to open. Up in the upper right hand corner you see the plus sign. I don't have any files open on this one. We're just going to do this from scratch. No, I am not going to sing to you. I'm not going to do that to you. My students ask when in my classroom. Sometimes we talk about music and we do things and have things done musically, and my students would always say, "Oh, because I'd have them sing sometimes just for fun as we do creative projects like this, and they'd ask me to sing. I'd say, you know what? There's a constitutional prohibition of that. Something about cruel and unusual punishment. So I'm not going to sing to you, but I'll demonstrate how we can use this. So if I click the plus sign in the upper right hand corner, I can create a new song. Now there are a couple things that you can do, and one is the audio recorder, and I'll get to that in a minute because that's going to be key. And you have the instruments, so students can actually play the instruments on the iPad. So even if though they might not play the violin, they could play around with it and bring in some of that music. But I am going to actually go back to this drummer, and I really think that this is cool because this allows students to express themselves musically in a style that relates to them. Okay, so since I'm airplaying this, there might be a lag as it goes across from my iPad to my MacBook, which is recording it. But I'm going to just play. What it does is it gives you several different styles of music to select from. Okay, and so students can select that style that most relates to them, or it relates to the topic at hand, and something that they feel is relevant, and it allows them a format to express their learning. So I'm just going to randomly pick one here. Let's see. I really liked, as I was going through this, I like Dez's. And so I bring up Dez, and I'm going to hit the play button here. I'll turn that down a little bit. And we see that we get these different beats. And notice as you switch them, there are slight changes to the beats. And so you can go through and select anyone you want. Listen to the beats that it creates. And let's say you're having students explain whether it's a mathematical concept or an event from history, a process in science, a persuasive argument, whatever it might be, they can actually create that beat and have it loop. It goes with any style, so they can create that and use that. All right. So now that I have, I'm going to go and stop the music. Now that I have my beat selected, I'm using Mason's Edgewood. I'm going to add some elements. So let's see. This is cool. There's a sound library as well, which you can download some more. It says the free instruments, the loops, and so you can download those. I liked listening to, maybe I wanted something that was, it goes Adera Latina, and I probably mispronounced that. You can go through and preview these and download it. And this one tells you it has 300 different loops with 25 Alchemy synth sounds, a drum kit, 2 live loop grids. Has all these things that students can use. Maybe there's, I didn't see any Latin loops or in that original series of drummers that we went through. So maybe I want to get that. I just click on Get and it will download it. I'm not going to download it right now, but it's something that applies to pretty much anybody you can find. And so lots of things there. But then once they've found the loop that they want and they've planned out what they want to say, they can use this audio recorder, and it's just a microphone. So they can go to vocals, and I would probably just go to narrator, and they can record themselves as they're expressing their learning. So when we hit the record button, we hear the beat in the background that I've already selected, and I'm recording myself as I explain what it is that I've learned, and I get to do that. And so here I can see the different sections. Now if I hit the play button here, recording myself as I explain. So I can even modify the speed. I can slow down myself talking, speed myself up. There's a lot of things that I can do to play with it to make it do exactly what I want it to do, and I can loop it if I want to, if there's a section I need to loop, whatever I need to do. Lots of options here for students to, in a creative way, express their learning. They're just speaking. That's all they're really doing, but they're doing it, and they're recording themselves in a fashion that allows them to be more engaged and express themselves that creatively. So I thought it was super cool, and I thought I'd share it with you. That is GarageBand. Again, it can be used in any content area. Sometimes people think, oh, only the music teachers can use it. That is not the case. It can be used everywhere by anyone that wants to have their students be creative in expressing their learning. Okay, so those are the iPad apps that you can use, and there's lots of others that can be used for digital publishing, especially for the movie creation. iMovie is a great one for that. It's come standard on the iPads, so it's really simple for students to use as well. Another app that's really good on the iPad is Book Creator, which allows students to actually create. When we talk about publishing, we usually are talking about written publishing. So that Book Creator allows them to actually create a book. Go figure, the original names there. Actually allows them to create a book. But those books can allow you to import media. You can embed video in the books. You can actually have it record yourself reading it, and it will read back the book to you in your voice. A lot of cool things that you can do. I've talked about Book Creator in other webinars. You can see that in some of the other webinars, but it's a really good app. And today I wanted to do a couple of apps that I hadn't done before, which is why I showed you Explain Everything and GarageBand, because even though they're so great, they're not ones that I typically talk about. So because I do like to occasionally, at least, give you some new content. With Book Creator, just for your information, it is a paid-for app. It is one of only a couple of apps that I've ever paid for, but it's that awesome. It is $4.99 normally. The Apple volume purchasing price is $2.49 if you want to put them on a class of iPads. So it's super cool. Okay, so let's talk about some of the online tools that can be used for digital publishing and for creating portfolios. And so these, because they are web-based, they can be used on any device. And one of these is actually really cool. Is called Adobe Spark Video. It used to be called Adobe Voice, and I always slip back into calling it Adobe Voice. But there is an iPad app and there's a web app. And the really cool thing is that if you create something on your iPad app, it is automatically in the web app and vice versa. So that there's this integration between the two that sometimes we don't get when we're dealing with things that operate both in the online world and the iPad world as an app. And so again, this is one of my favorite apps, and I'm going to demonstrate how to do that, how to use Adobe Spark Video right now online. Again, this is the Adobe Spark app, or we're using Adobe Spark Video online. So if you simply go to spark.adobe.com, it'll take you there. Now, to log in, you just click the login button in the upper right hand corner, and it'll ask you to log in with one of your accounts. Now, I have mine connected to my Google account, because that's one of the nice things about having our district Google accounts, is that we can simply use those to connect. So I'm going to continue with Google. And because I'm already logged in to my Google Chrome browser, it brings it up. Okay? And so we see some of my different videos that I've played with here. It asked me if I want to have Adobe Spark give me notifications. I'm going to block those. I don't need notifications from them. So we see some of the videos that I've created here. You've seen one that I've shown you several times if you watched lots of my webinars, which shows you just how easy Adobe Spark Video is to use, because I have Jacob's Alphabet with my little guy who is now 6, but when he was 3, he created his first Adobe Spark Video. At that time it was Adobe Voice, and in which he has pictures of different things around the house, or different objects or animals that start with the different letters, and that helped him to learn his alphabet when he was only 3. Okay, and that's, again, everything that's here will pop up on my iPad as well. So I'm going to click this plus sign, and I'm going to create a new video, and I get to give it a title. So my little guys have been watching the Lego Movie lately. Well, actually it's been a little while, but the song's still in my head, so I'm going to say everything is awesome. Okay, now it gives me some templates. If I want, I can start with from scratch, or I can use one of their templates for what I did, tell what happened at Hero's journey, whatever it might be. So you've got, lots of different templates you can use. I'm going to simply pick one. I'll pick personal growth. Okay, I typically just start from scratch, but the templates can be helpful, and it loads this. Now, one of the neat things about Adobe Spark, I don't want to see the tips. Okay, is it allows you to bring in video, text, photos, or icons, and it keeps it very, very simple. So in this case, maybe I want to bring in an icon, and let's see. I doubt they'll have this, but because I did everything is awesome, I'll go for Legos. There are some Legos. Alright, I'm going to put the Lego head in there. Okay, so I just have this very simple object, the Lego head, that I have on my slide. Then I can go through and go to my next slide. What was I doing? I'm going to add something. Oh, I can change the format here. I'll do a split screen maybe and have two different things. And I'll choose another icon. I will stick with Legos for right now. You're going to obviously have your students do the content area that is appropriate, and they'll choose. Let's see. Okay, whatever it might be. Obviously, this is kind of I'm just goofing around and picking things that are random off something that was off the top of my head. But maybe I'm doing something that's related to. I'm trying to think of some biology, mitosis. Let's see, that actually brings up something there, so I'll bring in an icon there. Maybe here I want to have a photo. I can grab a photo, some free photos. I can look at Pixabay, wherever I want to look. I can upload a photo. If I have a photo that I want to use that's on my computer, I can simply upload it, pull it from Google, wherever I might want to grab those photos. So that's really neat. So I might just have some text here, and so I can just type in some text about cell division, or I can try to be cute here. No, I'll go with cell division, Okay, and I can use as many of these as I want, and that's how I get it set up. Now, I've also planned my presentation, so I know what I want to say in my presentation. This is the neat thing about Adobe Spark Video. It works well for those students who struggle with expressing themselves in front of the class, as is so often the case, that they can practice and record each slide independently and have it then play back. So I'm going to hit the record button. Oh, I forgot about this one. You have to press and hold it. So I'm going to press and hold the record button and say everything is awesome. Oh, it's not working yet because I've not allowed it to use my microphone since I logged back in. I have a notification here that it wants to use my mic. I'll click allow. Now I can hold it down. You can see that it's recording me. It's telling me how long it's recording. It's going for 5 seconds now, and I can say everything is awesome when we're talking about mitosis and meiosis and all of the other cool things that have nothing to do with Legos, but you can do whatever you want. And it's giving me a warning there that I'm talking too long, which tends to be the case. Okay, it tells me nice work. I can record again as many times as I want. Maybe I realize that I messed up. I can just record over it by holding the button, and it starts fresh. It wipes out everything I just did, and it's recording again. And I do that separately. I do that separately for every slide. And so I can do that. I'm going to, here I'll explain the process of cell division and what it means. Here I'll explain the process of mitosis. The next slide is cell division. I think it's the same thing. I think, I don't know. Science people, I always mess up the other content areas. I apologize for not having my science knowledge accurate, but you get the point. And I do that with each slide. Now at the very end, I can go back and preview each one, obviously. Now I click the play button on the bottom here, and it starts fresh. It wipes out everything I just did, and it's recording again. Separately, I do that separately for every slide. Okay, so I paused it. What I didn't do is I didn't change the theme or the music. Maybe I don't like this black and white theme, so I want something with a little bit of flair. I can change it. I want to make a statement. I can change the formatting, and I can change the background music. I tend to like the wandering guitar. So let's say I'm going to try that with. And it starts fresh, it wipes out everything I just did, and it's recording again. Okay, so you can see how you can preview it each time. You can add your own music if you want. You can even turn the music off if it's not something that you want. But again, it allows you to create something. It allows your students to publish and express their learning in a different way. Everyone knows how to type an essay and share it that way. That's not something that we need to talk about. The tools are there. That if I give a webinar on how to type an essay, that nobody would want to watch it. Hopefully, there are some things here that you can find useful and apply to your classroom. Now, when I'm all done, again, I'm going to hit the preview button, make sure it's good, and I click on download, and I can simply download it here, and I can upload it into my Google Drive, and to turn it in Google Classroom. Okay, so that is Adobe Spark Video. Hope you enjoy it. Okay, there are lots of other options out there for digital publishing, and there's no way that in an hour or even 3 or 4 hours I could go through all the different options, but I wanted to give you some ideas of things that I hadn't necessarily talked about before, or at least with the Adobe Spark Video in a different format than I've talked about before, because I always talk about it in terms of the iPad. So let's switch gears a little bit to talk about student portfolios. A couple of reminders in regards to portfolios. First, the purpose of a portfolio is to demonstrate student involvement in meaningful performance tasks that are evaluated by strong rubrics to show mastery of content and skills. When you're using portfolios, there should be an emphasis on self-evaluation and metacognition. bells should be going off in your head right now thinking, NEPF, NEPF. So here's a way for you to capture that. One of the really neat things about portfolios is that students should choose the content of their portfolio. This portfolio should be something that's interactive. It's an iterative process in which students participate in academic discourse by explaining why they have chosen to include certain artifacts in their portfolio, why these are representative examples of what they've learned, and explain what they've learned during their time engaged in that learning activity. And then, because it's not just done by the student, the teacher is able to provide some meaningful feedback. So that's what I think of when I think of portfolios. There are a couple of ways that I want to talk about using these portfolios. And the first one is simply using Google Drive. All of our students have it already, so it's really, really super easy for them to use. My recommendation as a teacher to create a folder for each student that is shared just with that student. So you and the student are editors of that folder, and you maybe take them into the computer lab and do it where you create the folder and they add that folder to their drive. It's one place where you can see everything that they put into it, and they can see your feedback. And what's one of the great things about Google products, let's say they put a Google Doc in there, you can go in there and add comments to it. And so that's where that reflective process and that collaboration between you as the teacher and your students can take place, and it can be documented. And so it creates artifacts for them, it creates artifacts for you, and that's a great thing to do. Now, one of the really cool things about Google Drive folders is that they don't have to take everything out of their folder where they might have things organized by assignment or quarter or whatever. They don't have to necessarily pull it out of there and put it in to your shared folder for their portfolio. A neat thing, and this is a cool tool with Google Drive, if you do Shift, if you are you select a file and then click on Shift Z, that's Shift and the Z button, the Z key on the keyboard, you can add it to another folder without moving the original. So it's not making a copy. If you make changes to one, it makes changes to the other. It's just putting the file in two places at the same time, which kind of just blows my mind. But because they're not actually stored in a physical place, we can do that. And so that Shift Z function in Google Drive is really a cool function that they can allow them to put it in a separate folder. Really, it's kind of like creating a shortcut in as we used to do on Windows devices. That's really all it's doing. A little bit more complex way is by having students create portfolios using a website. Now they can use Wix. I've seen students use Weebly, and of course we have Google Sites as well, which we have access to as you know, with our NVC CSD accounts. With any of these, and Google Sites has, the old Google Sites had more flexibility, but it was less user-friendly. The new Google Sites is incredibly user-friendly. The kids can do it without, you know, it's very intuitive. So it will be easy for the kids to use. But any of these, you know, Wix is used on a professional level. So if students are creating in Wix, they're going to create a very professional, clean-looking website with a lot of different options. I talked about Weebly. A lot of people use Weebly in education, and that's, you know, Wix and Weebly and Google Sites are all very easy to use. With Wix, when it comes up, it's blank, and so that gives you a clean slate or a blank canvas on which to work. And so that's, you know, a neat thing for you to be able to do with your students, that they have the chance to, as they create their portfolio storage place, they can be creative in how they present that. Okay, and they can create multiple pages and do all that with whichever one they choose. So not a whole lot that I want to say about the portfolios, but give them a place to store the documents where you can access them, they can access them. I say documents loosely, files, videos, whatever it might be that they're publishing, a place where they can store it. And then you want to show student growth. You want them especially to see how they've grown throughout the year, because that's really important for them, because they need to have that confidence. And by seeing their growth, because none of us see growth as we're looking at ourselves, because it's so gradual, it's really hard to see. But if you can show students how they've grown throughout the course of the year, imagine the confidence that's going to bring into their lives and into their education. And that's one of the things that I really am grateful for with portfolios. That is the end of our digital publishing and portfolio webinar. Please take a minute to answer the questions in the exit survey at the very end, and I appreciate your time. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm here to try to support you in any way that I can. Thank you, and have a phenomenal day.